after more than a decade of viewing women a certain way, for their own gains and pleasures, they will somehow view their wives differently from how they've trained themselves to view the women they have ran through.
So Ben Shapiro took to his show recently to do a reaction video, watching a video that I did with Fresh and Fit not too long ago, basically reacting to a comment of when Myron from Fresh and Fit, my question to him is when men should get married. And Ben Shapiro had some very strong feelings and some indignation and some contempt for yours truly. So let's play the video right now with Ben Shapiro basically calling out me and our friends.
In today's day and age, you shouldn't be getting married until you're at least 35.
That was my next question for you. As a man, what age should you consider getting married?
So I have, this is my thing that I tell guys. I think 35 years old, had slept with at least 50 women, 100K per year, you're in shape, and you got 6 months to 1 year of savings.
All right, done. I got to get married. I've done all that.
The first time I heard this from Myron on his show, I thought to myself, this is contradictory and regressive to the agenda that they claim to be about, which is helping men. He is effectively promoting and advising men to participate and bolster a culture that they claim hurt men, and the pathologies that consequentially affect and damage women. They then in turn advise and warn men to avoid those women because they are damaged. It also trains men to seek out women that are mentally and morally predisposed to promiscuity or at least naivete. Then suddenly, at the flick of a switch, these men after multiple partners will have all the skills and know-how on how to find a good woman, but also they will have acquired all qualities required to be a good husband and father after more than a decade of marinating and practicing self-centered Machiavellian heathenism. After more than a decade of viewing women a certain way for their own gains and pleasures, they will somehow view their wives differently from how they've trained themselves to view the women they've ran through. I would imagine that the performative skills, principles, and values that you would need to sleep with multiple women are different from the skills, principles, and values that you will need to be a good husband and father, which is an idea that the Red Pill Caucus disagrees with in principle. There is effort, skills, habits, and values that are required to maintain a long-term relationship that are not required for short-term relationships. So how can you in 1 decade practice one thing in a particular environment, then expect to thrive in a different thing in another environment? I don't think that's how human psychology and behavior works.
That's easy.
Here's the Republic right there. So that is a recipe for a terrible marriage, by the way, guys. Waiting until you're 35 and have slept with 50 women, that is a terrible recipe for marriage by every available data point. It turns out that you are much better in terms of getting married if you get married younger, if you do not have a wide variety of sexual partners. All the stuff about, being in shape and having money and all the rest, you should try to do that generally speaking. But this notion that you wait until you're 35, you've already made a bevy of mistakes that have shaped your character and made you much more rigid as a person, and that you should have had a basis of comparison in terms of sex of dozens and dozens and dozens of women. No, the data do not support this, and it's stupid.
I say all.
Okay. So let's just kind of break down what Ben Shapiro called us out for, and maybe what I agree with and what I disagree with from our friend Ben Shapiro. By the way, this clip aside, you're not going to find a smarter, more intelligent person, book smart, social smart, economically smart than Ben Shapiro. What I will say is Ben Shapiro has not been out there in the dating scene. He hasn't been out there in the quote-unquote real world like most guys. So there's a very limited knowledge pool when it comes to depths of his knowledge when it comes to being out there in these streets. Let's just leave it like that. So
I find it hard not to categorize these comments as ad hominem and an expression of anti-intellectualism. Adam makes a contrast between book smarts and the real world, as if the contents of books aren't reflective of the real world. There's an aspect to postmodernism that's also anti-intellectual that brands books as if they are no more than just comprised of hypothetical abstract theories and imaginations of authors, and real-world knowledge comes only from your own experiences. I think there's great foolishness and hubris in that presupposition, and untruth as well. How can you move further ahead than those who came before you and those around you when you don't know where they ended and how they ended up where they did, without learning from them and their experiences? Books are not one-dimensional as people who make this false dichotomy on books, experience, and real-world knowledge insinuate to be. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Experience keeps the dear school, but fools will learn in no other." But the actual sentiment that Adams headed towards, that red pill influences like to make, is something more insidious and indicative of the worldview, ideas, and agenda, and will be demonstrated in this video.